Hi guys, so here is the training as promised regarding um, your weekly check-ins, and it's titled on the top here, why aren't I losing as much weight as I think I should be? So I find that this is a common problem with a lot of people. Um, and I can kind of understand it a little bit in the fact that they put in a lot of effort in the week. They start changing aspects of their lifestyle. They start exercising more. They start working really hard on their food, as in tracking what they're doing, which is obviously a lot more time consuming than what they were doing previously. And they're obviously watching what they're eating, a lot more conscious of what they're eating. So they're putting in a big effort. And what you find is that they see some good results, and then they'll get to one week. Let's say it's week 4, so they've steadily lost weight. Say, let's say 1.5 kilograms a week for 3 weeks, so they're 4.5 kg down. And then they get to week 4, and nothing's changed on the scales. That is, nothing's changed on the scales, and their reaction is like, "How can that be with the effort I've put in?" Um, I've done everything pretty much the same. I've eaten really well. I've exercised 5 times in a week, and nothing's changed. Um, and the reaction is like the world's going to end, when the simple fact is that in 4 weeks they've still lost 4.5 kg. And you know what? This is what tends to happen with a lot of people. They tend to obviously draw on the negative rather than positive. I can kind of understand why they're drawing on the negative for the hard work that they're putting in, but what they're being is really short-sighted um, in how they're approaching looking at the results. And I'm going to allude to in this training why that is the case, and I'm also going to allude to the fact is why them being like that and instantly just thinking it's bad that they're not seeing any results is really harming not just their progress long term, but their relationship with exercise, their relationship with food, and the relationship with doing both of them in a healthy and sustainable way for the long term. So this is no doubt going to help you, and I won't give too much away because we'll talk about it at the end of why it's going to help you. But this is what I tend to see happens with people. Obviously, it doesn't happen with me because um, I coach them on the fact that I take a battery of measures, I take a battery of tests, so we're able to draw more than just simply looking at the weight. And I encourage you, if you can, to not just go off weight. You need to go off more than one testing battery, whether that's body fat, whether that's circumferences, pitches, or all of them. I would advise. But what happens is they see 3 weeks of results, like the person we use the example of, and then they see the 4th week they've not seen any results from week 3. So what happens? They think they need to change the plan, and it's not just a little change of plan, which is sometimes needed. It's a total 360 change in plan. They start bringing in every bit of exercise. They start decreasing calories. They start going more extreme, in other words, with what they're doing. But what's happening is that they're not giving it enough time to work. Now, with anything you do from an exercise and from a nutritional point of view, you don't know how effective it is until you give it enough time to be effective. And that includes repetition. That includes being consistent with what you're doing and sticking to it and trusting the process. Okay, so you're basically looking at anything 4 or 5 weeks plus to give it a good go, and then you can draw decent conclusions from that and know where you need to make the changes. And especially starting out, you could even say it's longer. You could even say, right, it's 8 weeks, and let's see how this goes. Draw all the information from that, because what you set out to start off with should require little changes here and there, but they should not need to be dramatic changes in exercise or in nutrition, at least for the first 8 weeks that you're doing something. And people can say, "Oh, I lose motivation." Well, everyone loses motivation. Motivation's finite, and when motivation runs out, you need to draw upon your discipline. You need to draw upon systems that you've got set up in order to keep you going, and that involves being consistent and doing things time and time again in order to get yourself where you want to get to. So why does all this happen? Why does changing the plan happen? And obviously then it leads to not giving the plan that you've been put on enough time to work. Well, the reason for the changes is because it brings in doubt. You start doubting what you're doing, you start doubting yourself. You become demotivated. So because you become demotivated, you need to think you need to start bringing in aggressive changes. That increases stress, and it just makes you more and more confused. So it just leads you going round and round in circles, never really finding any answers. And the reason why you've not really found any answers is because you've jumped to conclusions. You've not actually found the real root causes or the real answers. You've just thought they were. And also you're even more confused because you've not given the process time to work. Okay. Now, I always ask people these questions when they get like this, when they get, they start panicking and they start doubting themselves. So they start to doubt, they start to get demotivated, they start to get stressed, and they start to get confused. I always ask them, what are you basing your results off? Are you basing it off research literature? If you are, show me where that literature is and I'll have a look at it. But they're not. They're not basing it off research or any sort of literature. When you actually find out what they are basing it off, they're basing it off what their mates doing at Slimming World, what their mates doing at Weight Watchers, or what they've previously done, which was a weight loss kind of routine and not a body composition routine. Body composition and weight loss are two totally different things. Body composition involves weight loss, but it also involves maintaining and building lean muscle mass, which means in the long run you're not going to lose as much weight as if you just focused on weight loss. Now, just focusing on a negative on the scales and weight loss all the time, in my opinion, is very short-sighted, and it can be detrimental to your health long term. Why is it detrimental to your health? Because you're only focused on losing weight and not the type of weight that you're losing. So you could be losing half of your weight as muscle mass. It's never ever been good for you or any other human being on this planet to lose muscle mass as weight. The reason being is it's hard enough, to put it on, and from the age of 35 there's this thing called sarcopenia, which is an age-associated loss of muscle mass. So every year it becomes harder and harder and harder for you to maintain and for you to build lean muscle mass, because after the age of 35 it's been shown you lose muscle mass unless you do something about it. Now, this is something obviously I've researched quite well. I did my dissertation on it at uni, and things like a 9-week weight training routine are shown to reverse 2 decades worth of sarcopenia, so of age-associated loss of muscle mass with age. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. So it can be reversed, just like type 2 diabetes can be reversed and things like that. And one of the ways to reverse type 2 diabetes is with weight training. So getting back, without going off on a tangent like I always do, what are you basing your results off? If you can give yourself a good explanation, or if you can give someone like me a good explanation as to what you're basing your results off, then fine, that's okay. But the problem is that people are becoming doubtful of what they're doing, demotivated of what they're doing, stressed and confused, because they're basing their results, their current results, over or comparing it to results that have nothing to do with what they're currently doing from a body composition point of view. You cannot compare body composition results with Slimming World, with Weight Watchers, or 20 years ago when you were in the prime of your life, or whatever that was. You need to base your results off what you're doing right now. Okay, and something very, very similar to what you're doing. Okay, because you can't compare what you're doing with something that is not similar. That's just ludicrous. Okay, and then I always ask them the question, are they really that bad? Are your results really that bad? And they can't answer it. Do you know why they can't answer it? Because they've only taken weight as a measure. So the amount of times I've taken measures with clients and their weight stayed the same, and it's been a more positive change than the week before or 2 weeks before when their weight did go down, because their weight went down because they lost muscle mass. And you take it again, their weight stabilizes, and it's a better set of results. Their body fat's gone down, even though their weight stayed the same. It's because they've held on or built muscle mass and subsequently burnt fat as a fuel. And it's a better set of body composition results. So you can't really say your results are good or whether they're bad just going off weight as a measure, because you don't know the full picture. You have to take a whole battery of testing measures to be able to answer that question. And if you're just going off weight, then you're onto a loser like straight away, because your weight is not going to be linear week on week. It's not going to go down like that, like it shows on a graph week on week. It's going to have drops. It's then going to plateau, drops. It might even have increases at some point. So it's going to be really hard psychologically, if you're just going off your weight, to keep that motivation high and to keep that momentum going and be able to think differently and push through those so-called or thought of plateaus. And I always ask them, would it be better instead to focus on something else? So in other words, is it okay just to have this kind of single focus on weight all the time, when actually if you focused on doing things consistently well over a 12-week period, would your weight loss and would you achieving your goal be a byproduct of that? Yep, it would. So if you were to focus on things like consistency, like following the plan that someone or you set yourself, and to a certain degree ignoring all kind of past things you've learnt or been told about what should be happening from a results perspective, then you're more likely to see results and you're more likely to get to where you want to get to from a weight point of view. So let's get this. So all in all, for me, it's about these three things. I've just talked about consistency. These three things you really need to work on and you really need to do. Consistency is massive. Just focus on doing things consistently well. Figure out your routine. Figure out your food. Lifestyle factors you need to work on and you need to build on. And just go to town on them. Just execute them, and be disciplined in how you execute them, and do it time and time again. Okay. Another one is trusting the process, and they both go hand in hand. If you don't trust the process, then there's no point starting, in my opinion, because you'll always be chopping and changing. You'll never find answers. You'll never find actually what the right training method is for you, what the right way of eating is for you, what the root causes of a lot of your problems are. You'll never ever find that, because you'll be changing so much and so many variables all the time. You will not know what's worked and what's not working for you. Okay, so you need to trust the process and just stick to your guns. Okay, and the last one, and is a really important one, and this is something I work with my clients on all the time, is perception. So I'm trying to change your perception now, right now, on how you view results, on how you view your weight not changing on the scales. Because actually your weight not changing on the scales might be more of a positive result for you than it actually going down. Because you might have put muscle on and therefore dropped body fat. That is a very positive set of results. Whereas if your weight's gone down and you've lost body fat but you've also lost lean muscle mass, that's not so great. You know, there's reasons as to why that might happen, but yeah, that's not as great results as your weight staying the same and you putting on lean muscle mass and still dropping body fat. So what is your perception right now on results? You know, what is your perception when you step on those scales and your weight has stayed the same from 7 days ago and you've put in a lot of effort with the training and you've eaten really well? What is your perception on that? How does it make you feel? And if it makes you feel anxious, if it makes you feel guilty, if it makes you feel doubtful of what you're doing, and if it leaves you feeling really confused and that you don't know where to turn and where to find the answers, then in my opinion, you need to change the way you look at results, and you need to change your perception on it. Because if you don't change your perception on how you view weight loss, or not how unimportant weight loss is, but it's just how weight loss is only one part of the jigsaw puzzle when it comes to you changing long term from a health and from a visual aesthetics point of view. It's just one part of the jigsaw puzzle, and to be fair, it's quite a small part compared to other areas. Now, more than ever, I go off visuals with clients. Body fat is a massive one, and also circumferences we go off, and that they're to a certain degree more important than the weight itself. But if your perception right now is still kind of the what I call the old way of thinking, then by all means get in touch with me. But you need to start understanding that if you don't change your perception on how you view results that don't happen for the effort you're putting in, ultimately you are not going to change long term. So I hope this training has helped. Okay, I know I've kind of waffled on a bit tonight, but this is something I work really hard with my clients over. So I talk about it a lot, and yeah, hope it's helped you. And if you've got any questions, further questions about it, just get in touch with me.